podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to a new podcast, The Paddock and the Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
Hello and welcome to The Paddock and the Pavilion. And to our listeners all around the world, we'd love to hear from you, so do get in contact with us either via Twitter or Facebook to let us know what you think of the show so far. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify or Stitcher. Rate and review us and let your friends know. In today's show, I'm really delighted to welcome the first black woman to play cricket for England, Ebony Rainford-Brent, a World Cup winner who is now well known to us for her work on Sky Sports Cricket and Test Match Special. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, Ebony. Welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion. Delighted you can join me on the show.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Well, to start with, you must still be in a bubble. So what's it like living in a biosecure bubble?
Yeah, we're still locked in for the summer currently at the moment as we're recording, doing the Australia T20s. And yeah, it's been intense this summer. You know, we get tested every few days through COVID testing. Inside the bubble, you get temperature checks maybe 4 or 5 times a day. You have to go through different zones. We have health passports, body scanners, trackers on our passes that we have to walk around with. So it's pretty intense, I have to say. We're not allowed to leave between sort of series and stuff like that. So it's been it's great, so great to get cricket back. Definitely great to get cricket back. But no doubt, I think everybody is realised the impact of this summer.
Yeah, because I just read on the internet that Joss Butler hasn't been home for 10 weeks and is now going home.
Yeah, it's intense, isn't it? And, you know, a lot of these guys, you know, you look at Joe Root, who just had a little girl only a little while ago. It's a long time to be away from friends and family. But I guess, you know, people are making the sacrifice because, you know, they want the nation and the world to have live sport.
And I've heard on the radio and actually on the TV that you like playing the drums. So have you missed playing the drums?
I have. Last time I came, I bought a little practice kit, which is just like a little pad, and I've got like a little foot tapper, which is good to just kind of keep you ticking. But then nothing substitutes getting on a real drum kit or getting to the studio. So massively miss it. I can't wait. I think I'm done with the bubble sort of after this Australia stuff, and then I'll be able to get back in the music zone.
So is there a band you'd like to back playing the drums?
Not so many in specific bands. I have a lot of specific drummers I like. There's a guy called Richard Spaven who's does a lot of hip hop and stuff like that. He's amazing. A guy called Questlove. I've got his kit, his replica kit, who plays he's in a band called The Roots, but he's more of an individual. So yeah, there's no doubt that there's a lot of people I love, but I just love playing styles and just free flowing as well.
Good. Well, let's get back to the cricket part of your cricket career. So your mum has got Jamaican heritage. Is there any cricket in your family?
Not really. My mum's from Jamaica. She came here when she was 13. Wasn't herself into cricket. My older brother, who passed away when I was really young, apparently he liked cricket, but I don't remember because I was too young to know that. So I didn't really grow up with any sort of cricket experience in the household or any love for the game at home or anything like that. It was genuinely just the day when a guy called Tony Moody came into my primary school and introduced me to the game when I was about 10 or so. So yeah, that was the kind of introduction, was through an initiative.
But you were a very all-round sportswoman as well, because I've read you represented you at the All England Athletics Championships as well.
Yeah, lots of different sports. I did basketball, London schools and English schools level, athletics, squash for London. Yeah, loads of different sports. I love sports. Football I loved. I don't know why I never really tried to kick on, but cricket kind of. There was a lady who was my mentor. She was always trying to make sure I came back towards being in cricket. So there's no doubt that, that's the direction I ended up going.
So when did you start focusing on cricket?
That's a really good question. I think maybe late teens. You know, I was in England junior stuff from 14, like you go through the age groups under this, under that, under 15s, etc. I think there's two things. Is one, you know, cricket was going well, and then I actually had an injury when I was 19, and after sort of going through that experience of realizing I nearly lost sport, I think I committed to cricket to like get me back to health. So it was quite late on, I think, because I was still studying. I was doing a master's in chemistry at uni, and I was doing a lot of stuff. I don't think it was 100% clear it was going to be, because also for women at that stage, there wasn't a viable career option, or it wasn't something that people were commonly doing. So I didn't see it until quite late as something I wanted to commit to.
Yeah, because reading, I see you started playing for Surrey Second 11 at the age of 16. And were there any other black girls playing? Were you the only one?
Yeah, I was the first black woman to play for England. There was a lady in my club called Jo. What was her name? Jo? I can't remember her name exactly right now. But yeah, there was a lady I played with early in my career, Jamaican lady that come over to the UK for a while to play. But in terms of English black girls, no, they were, I was the first black woman to play for England, and there weren't any others throughout. So it was, yeah, definitely not that sort of diversity.
So, but when you first played for Surrey, you quickly progressed to their first 11. You were opening the batting and the bowling at times.
Yeah. I was back in the day when my body was decent and in good order. I could run down and bowl it. I thought I was mostly, I started my England career as a bowler, so I think I thought the plan was to be a bowler with a bit of batting. I suppose in some ways I was lucky I had that both strings to my bow, because when my back gave way later in my career, I was able to convert into a batter, like just genuinely focus on that and end up, which is rare, I think. I don't think you get that opportunity to do both, and then actually when one packs up, you can take the other one on. So yeah, ended up as an opening batter, but started my career as focused as an opening bowler.
Yeah, I can't think of many people who've gone from opening the bowling to opening the batting. But your injury, when did you first have trouble with your back? Because it was a major problem for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, from what would I say? From around the age of from about 15, I was having like little problems, and I'd speak to a physio here or there and say sort of, is this normal? And I think the kind of response was often, you're too young for it to be something serious, so don't worry, just stretch a bit. And if it wasn't quite the intensity of how physiotherapy is now in our industry. So there was always niggles, and then it was when I was 19 that I was sort of at England training day. I had this really sharp pain, went home to pick up a remote, and as I sort of stood up, my back gave way, and I never really walked properly again for about a year. It turned out I had 2 prolapsed discs, a pars defect, all sorts of problems with my back, which had been around, but I think they'd all been misdiagnosed and sort of left as sort of hanging. So then when my back did finally just give way, it gave way properly. So yeah, I was out, or I had to leave cricket. I had my MRI scans and told I might never play sport again because of the amount of damage. I couldn't sit up long enough to study, so I left university for a year as well. So it was quite a long time out, sort of through injury, and then it was about 3 years it took to get back to playing, which is quite a lot of time out of a young person's life.
Yeah.
But
Because at that time you were also doing a master's degree at university.
yeah.
You had to take a year off, didn't you, at university?
Yeah, and that was frustrating, because I think I was hoping that just because you lose your cricket, you don't lose your studies, but it was just too much pain to physically sit up. I was just to even lift my head, I was in agony. And so the decision was made to leave university for a year. I came back and I finished later on, but it was quite a tough year, just being lying in a bed pretty much in a bit of a dark depression. It was pretty sad times.
Yeah, I was going to say, a question I got in, how did the injury affect you mentally as well? Not being able to play
Yeah.
cricket, not being able to study.
Yeah, no, it was, at that time, I'll say in some ways it felt like the worst time of my life, because you're just, I remember being in dark rooms and not really watching much TV, just putting on weight. But what I would say the best thing about it is, I look back now and I think that that experience changed my life, because getting out of it, which was kind of helped by my brother and my mum with some inspirational stuff, and I started setting goals, and I got much more focused as a person, more resilient. To be able to fight back, I think, physically from something like that, to get back and play international sport took a lot of mental power. So I think I discovered more about myself and what I'm capable of. So although it was tough at the time, I kind of think it was one of the best experiences, because I feel like I can handle loads more in life now.
Yeah, because hadn't some people said that you'd never play sport again?
Yeah, I remember the doctor said it. So my mum she had to help me get to hospital to go through the results of the MRI. And the first thing, it was a female doctor, I remember the first thing she just said is, look, based on this damage, you may never play sport again. I'm a bit worried about. And she started talking about nerve damage and paralysis, and so let me know if you start to get these signs, because that's really dangerous, and it could be going the wrong way. And she just said, look, it's unlikely you'll play sport at any sort of level again. And I just remember bursting into tears, because you're just thinking, hold on, my whole life is being taken away. But luckily, and it was my brother who said, look, you can't listen. And what I found, which this is one recommendation I'll put to everybody, is try different types of things, because I found that Western treatment never worked for me. I tried everything, and traditional physios, a podiatrist and stuff like that. But I found once I started trying more Eastern medicines and chiropractic care and acupuncture, those are the things that actually worked for me. So that's a bit of advice I'd say to everybody: just keep trying different styles, because I spent years trying to get healed one way, and then I found a way that worked pretty quickly.
And no trouble, you're back now?
I wouldn't say no trouble. I have to do a lot of work. I do a lot of yoga and core work and weights and stuff. I have to do maintenance work. Luckily, because I don't bowl anymore, it's not so much, I don't get the crazy spasms. I used to get crazy spasms that just wipe you out for, a month or whatever it is at a time. Since I stopped playing cricket, those reduced significantly, and now it's more, they happen every now and then, but mainly a lot easier. And I think I do a lot of rehab work just to keep my body moving.
That's good. Well, your England debut, I'm looking up, you played at 18 against Netherlands. Is that what you call your England debut? Or?
No, it's a weird one. So there's a few of us who have that. Isha Guru is another England cricketer, has it. England played the junior team in a senior tournament. So we get official caps, but I don't see it as my England cap, even though it is official, because we weren't the full England team playing. They entered a junior team in a European tournament.
This is in 2001 against the Netherlands and Ireland.
Yeah. So that was, we would have been young, and there's a few of us that we take it because we got more caps on paper. But my real debut for me was in Chennai in 2007. I think it was early that year, January, which was a World Series against India, Australia, New Zealand. So
that's right.
Yeah, that's after sort of the comeback and when I played for the full team rather than a junior team in a senior tournament.
And what did it feel like, that being the first black woman to play for England? Was there the significance at the time?
No, I mean, we didn't have the the platform that the players have now, so it wasn't sort of a big fanfare or anything like that. It was written about in the bits of papers here and there, more in the black newspapers than anything. But I've spoken about the fact that I found it a mixture of emotions, because I wanted there to be more diversity. So I couldn't believe that in 2007 there was just no other black women playing. It was just like, how is this possible? So I just always felt a little bit awkward about it. I think now, years later, I realise and I use it as an opportunity to try and create opportunities for more black people to come through. I realise it's a good thing to have achieved, or I wouldn't say achieved, but have done. But back then I was just a bit embarrassed. It's just like, why are there no more black people in our games? So yeah, I didn't sort of celebrate or anything like that.
But moving on, 2009 was obviously a very big year for you, because you're part of 2 World Cups winning squads, and you also played in the Ashes, England retaining the Ashes. Presumably that is your favourite year of playing cricket.
Yeah, massively. It was incredible because my debut in 2007, we were a team that were rubbish. We weren't very. We pretty much came bottom of that tournament, and we had talent, but we weren't clicking as a side. And then we spent sort of 18 months up to the next World Cup in 2009, just getting ourselves organised. What are our roles? What are our responsibilities? What does this mean? How do we train? We just changed so many things and ended up becoming a force really after that for a good time, where, like you said, we went on the run of the World Cup, World T20, Ashes. Me personally, I was I was never a Claire Taylor or Charlotte Edwards or Sarah Taylor, who, we had such a good team. So I never got that clear run through the side. So I was in the environment. Sometimes I'd play, sometimes I wouldn't. And so it was kind of a time where you just knew as a squad, we pulled in. If you're playing that day, you had to be on. But if you weren't playing, you still you're part of the environment and what it brought and all the energy. So I can't believe that period. It was almost so surreal of just how we just believed so much in ourselves. We knew exactly what we wanted to do. it was like every game we went into, we had no doubt we were going to win. And that was so interesting considering when we started, it felt like we were going to lose every game. So it was the psychology of that, the camaraderie, and the dedication and focus was, one of the best experiences I've had for like a block of sort of 18 months.
Yes, and of course, what that must have been like being in a bubble as well when you're at a world event as a team.
Yeah,
but you were able to go out,
Yeah, we were allowed out then. How times have changed, eh? But you are, especially as a player. I mean, we didn't. It's really interesting because I think as female players who at that stage, it wasn't a financial, gain as such, where it is much better now as professional, like fully professional sport. We just dedicated everything. So when you went on tour, there was no drinking, there was no partying, no nothing. We just all settled in and drilled in to focus. So I wouldn't say it's a huge amount different to our bubble now. Actually, it was that sort of feel. So yeah, I'm definitely used to bubble life in terms of that experience.
And you retired from international cricket in 2010. Why did you retire a year after?
Yeah, a lot of reasons, loads of reasons. Back was one. Just the pain that was always going to, even though, I got back to playing, it was always, I was always struggling. And I think it's just the nature of cricket being such a sport where, everything's a little bit side on rather than sort of a natural flow. So my body always struggled. Yeah, I wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought. I'd had an injury a little while before, an ankle injury. And during that time, I started seeing the world wider, more friends, family. And I realized how much you sacrifice to be part of a side. It's great, but I also missed having connection to the real world and stuff like that. So I think and then also career. I think career was, I was just starting to think, okay, what am I going to do with my life? Where am I going? So I hopped out, should I say.
But you carried on playing for Surrey for a couple more years, didn't you? And you led them through promotion to the top division.
Yeah, I felt uncomfortable leaving Surrey because we had some young players and, as a senior player, an England player, I just wanted to make sure it was all set up. During that time, Nat Siver came through and Cecily Scott, who was our captain for a while, and Nat Siver, they were coming through. And once they were good and I felt like the team was sort of ready, then I knew it was okay to step away. So I kept going with Surrey for a little bit just to make sure that, everything was in good order.
But you led them to promotion to the top division. So did you ever envisage when you were younger that you'd be a captain? And what attracted you to being a captain?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely a reluctant leader. So it's one of the sort of things that your coach says, look, come on, Ebony, you should do this. And you're like, really? And that's not because I don't like the idea of leadership, but I'm aware, captaincy it has so many facets. You've got to start thinking about people a lot more and what they need and can I communicate and all those sort of things. So I was never really someone who threw my name forward saying, make me captain. But getting it, it's an honour and that you have to take on a lot of other responsibilities behind the scenes. And when, as it's interesting because Surrey women have never won the first division in that old format because it's now changed, never won the first division. But in my whole career, we'd spent our times going up and down between Division 1, 2, and I don't think we dropped 3, but we had. So it was important when I didn't want to leave us in the lower division. So I think getting promotion was quite important to making sure, you felt like you left it in a good place.
Good. And I read that your penultimate game for Surrey, you scored 100 as well, I was reading.
Yeah, I had a really good season.
Yeah.
I didn't even
so you
know
went
that,
out on a high.
Yeah, definitely went out. I didn't even realise that. But yeah, I went out. But I think I had a really good season that last year, actually. A lot of people were like, why are you retiring? You just scored more runs for Surrey than ever. But it was just the right time. Better to retire like that rather than your last few games you scored duck.
Oh yeah, it's always better to retire with people saying why you retired rather than why not, isn't it?
Exactly.
Let's find out Ebony's favourite.
So now coming on to a part of the show about our favourites. What was your best ever day's cricket? It could be watching, playing.
Oh god, that's a good question. Yeah, I'd definitely say the 50 over World Cup final that we won in 2009 in Sydney. So it's at the North Sydney Oval. That's just incredible to win a World Cup. Something that you dream of, to be part of. From if you're interested in sport and you want to do well, I was dreaming of that moment, and to actually do it is so surreal. We all went a little bit crazy after the game. I mean, I remember stealing the groundsman's buggy and driving around the whole of North Sydney Oval, like taking banners down, just going crazy a little bit. It was just incredible, and like to do it with a bunch of people where you have to get everything precise. It was special. So that's definitely my best. Getting your medal, getting up on the podium, champagne flowing. It was up there.
Great. Turning to actually individuals and things now. What about your favourite batsman?
Got loads. So Alex Stewart, he was one of the England kind of leaders while I was growing up, and I just loved how professional, and he was always twiddling his bat, and he was at his height of his career. So he was up there. For flair, for pure flair, it was Brian Lara for me. I wasn't old enough for the Viv Richards era, but Brian Lara was just, that bat lift and that grace, and the footwork was everything that you could think of. And in the women's game, Charlotte Edwards was just churning out runs, and she used to have this flick on the leg side that I always wanted. I always went up to her and was like, show me that leg. It was so good. So I'd say those are my top three sort of batters of all time.
And your favourite bowler?
Oh, good question. Might have to be Sir Curtly Ambrose, because I just think he's... Well, actually, I'm going to slightly change that. I was going to say Sir Curtly Ambrose because I've watched him loads. Just the flow and how tall he was, and how, he could be mean and stare down, but then he was also the nicest guy off it. But I also have to throw in Mikey Holding. I didn't watch a huge amount live of Mikey Holding, but, I think working with him, which I get to do now, and you go back through the footage and just how graceful his run-up was, he'd be up there for me.
Yeah, well, I'm old enough to remember these people like Viv Richards and Michael Holding. So what about your favourite captain?
To play under was definitely Charlotte Edwards. She was my main captain that I played under. To be honest, I don't think I played under another England captain. So, yeah. And I'm just trying to think who my Surrey captain would be, a Patsy. And yeah, so I'd have to say it's Charlotte Edwards. I didn't really have any others as such. So, she was a pretty strong-willed leader. You learned a lot about resilience and toughness from her. She knew exactly what she was trying to achieve, and you just kind of all followed, like, right, let's go. Yeah.
Well, Charlotte's quite local to me because she originally comes from Ramsey, and I'm here from March in Cambridgeshire. I played against her dad, Clive, a late dad, I'm afraid, and her uncle Huey always comes to our cricket dinner at March every year. And we had Philip de Freitas there last year, but Huey was there, so wanted to give him a mention as well.
Oh.
What about your favourite ground?
That's a really good question. Well, it has to be the Oval. I think the reason is I just seem to score runs there. It's because it was just such a good wicket. Often in women's cricket, early days, we would play on some dodgy wickets for the early part of our career. And I remember when we shifted to start getting our games at the Oval, not all of them, but we'd get some games there. And the wicket was just so good. I just think I was so surprised. I just scored a surprise. I was like, oh my God, the ball actually comes onto the bat. And I think, you can't get anywhere better than that when it's packed with, fans, and, maybe slightly miss the early days where I used to hear a little bit more sort of carnival atmosphere of music and instruments and stuff like that. It started to sort of come back during the last World Cup and stuff like that. But I think that the atmosphere when you have a packed Oval, I think the environment for me is more my style, because it's not quite as stiff, I suppose, as Lord's is, which some people love that. I'm much more sort of a free flowing, open, everybody's welcome vibe, which I like about the Oval.
What about you've obviously played a lot of other sports. What about your favourite other sport?
That's a really good question. I love basketball. I think if I ever had a choice to go back and play another sport and try and push it to the highest, it would be basketball as well. Just so fast paced, brilliant tactics, athletic, just keeps moving. Yeah, it's a brilliant game.
Now, after retirement, you've now moved into broadcasting. Is that something you wanted to get into when you finished?
It was a bit of how do I describe it? It was a bit of luck, really. I got a call from Adam Mountford, who's the producer of TMS, and he called me, and this wasn't even true. I'd sort of just retired about 2 weeks before, and an announcement had gone out, and he just called and said, I heard on the radar that you wanted to move into the media, which is not true, but he'd heard that, and I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds exactly like what I want to do. And so I just bit his hand off and just did a few games for the women at first, and then within a few weeks after that, he called me in to do the Australian ODI series, and from there things just flew, really. So it wasn't a plan at all. I didn't even know I'd like the media or anything like that, but I found myself yeah, absolutely loving it.
And what are the different skills working on Test Match Special and Sky, radio compared to television?
Yeah, very different, very different. So radio, you have to be able to, I suppose, entertain or talk over longer periods of time. So you've got to see the game as well as being able to bring in stories and energy and stuff like that. Sky's different because it's much more technical. So first of all, in your ear, you have a lot of talk back. You have three people talking at one time. You've got a director, so you know where the pictures are cutting to. You have a producer who's talking to about what content they want in, and you have a PA who's doing the counting of into breaks, out of breaks. So sometimes you guys listening might not know, but we've got we might pause or for a split second because the world feed are joining and all these sort of things. So there's a lot of that going on. Plus there's engines of people in the truck getting content up. So the last thing you would want is you to be talking away on air and someone's trying to put a video on top of, or like a replay of Just Butts 50. You have to be listening to go, right, this is coming in. So it's very different skill. It's being able to let the game breathe more, and it's being able to then deliver technically what you're seeing on the screen. Very, very different experiences. So I like them both. They're both really great, and they're just different ways of communicating the game.
And you're having to switch sometimes very quickly from one to the other, aren't you, as well? So
yeah, we've been doing, like, here at the moment I'm doing the BBC highlights program, All Lives and radio, and so they're all very different styles. So you can find yourself jumping from one to the other, and for a second you start going into another flow and you have to kick back. So it's, I've actually tried to reduce the crossover as much as possible, just because I realised that you're not necessarily your best if you're mixing different styles.
Just a new addition to the Paddock and the Pavilion. I've had a request from a friend of mine, Andy Bays. He wanted to know what's it like working with Bumble.
Bumble is my favourite human being in the world. He's fun from 6 a.m. till midnight. He's just fun human being. People might know, but he makes a great slow gin, and he makes these gooseberry vodkas and all these little concoctions, which are incredible. So if you're on his good side, he'll bring you a couple of bottles of those, which I've got a couple stashed at home now. He is the most fun person, and also he's been great. Working with him, he helps you if you need feedback for commentary or what you want to put in next or how to do something. I would describe him as up there he goes on my list of favourite human beings.
Well, he is someone that's done virtually everything. He's played, he's umpired, he's coached England, he's been on the Test Match Special, he's been on the television, he sings, he does everything, doesn't he?
Yeah, I want his energy. I want whatever he's eating.
Well, that's fantastic. I think that's all we've got time for today. Thank you, Ebony, for being on the Paddock and the Pavilion and sharing your inspirational story. And listeners will be pleased to know that Ebony is going to be back again next week when we're going to be speaking about her role as the Director of Women's Cricket at Surrey, when we're going to be talking about the ACE programme at Surrey and how to improve opportunities for young black cricketers. Thank you very much for joining me.
No, thanks for having me, and I look forward to the next show.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to The Paddock and the Pavilion. You can download the show on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher and Spotify. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Pad and Pav.
Sports Social Podcast Network.